Snow fell like tiny white feathers across the vast Texas ranch. Christmas Eve had arrived with unusual silence, broken only by the soft whistle of wind through the bare oak trees. The main house stood like a fortress against the winter night, its warm yellow lights glowing through frost-covered windows. Inside, Samuel Big Sam sat alone in his leather chair, staring at the dying embers in the massive stone fireplace. At 62 years old, he controlled the largest cattle operation in 3 counties. His weathered hands from decades of ranch work held a glass of whiskey that had gone untouched for the past hour. The house felt too big, too quiet. His wife had passed 5 years ago, and his only son had died in the war overseas. The ranch hands had gone home to their families for Christmas, leaving Sam with only his memories and the endless stretch of land that had made him wealthy but couldn't fill the emptiness in his chest. A soft scratching sound came from the front door. Sam lifted his head, listening. It came again, not the aggressive scratching of a wild animal, but something gentler, almost hesitant. He set down his glass and walked to the heavy wooden door, his boots echoing in the empty hallway. When he opened the door, cold air rushed in, carrying snowflakes that danced in the warm light spilling from inside. At first, he saw nothing. Then his eyes dropped down and his breath caught in his throat. A small figure stood on his porch, so still and pale that for a moment Sam wondered if his eyes were playing tricks on him. It was a child, but unlike any child he had ever seen. The little one appeared to be about 7 or 8 years old, with long, tangled hair the color of corn silk and skin so white it seemed to glow in the moonlight. What made Sam's heart skip was the way the child looked, exactly like an old fashion come to life. The child wore a faded red dress with tiny white buttons, stockings with holes at the knees, and small black shoes that had seen better days. But it was the face that truly captured Sam's attention. Large, dark eyes that seemed far too old for such a young face, and a small mouth that curved in neither smile nor frown. "Well, hello there," Sam said softly, crouching down to meet the child at eye level. "What are you doing out here on such a cold night?" The child didn't answer, just tilted their head slightly to one side, exactly like a doll might if someone had positioned it just so. Snowflakes had gathered in the child's hair and on the worn fabric of the dress, but the little one didn't seem to notice or care about the cold. "Are you lost?" Sam asked, his voice gentle. He had always been good with children back when his son was young. "Do you need help finding your family?" Still no response. The child's dark eyes studied Sam's face with an intensity that made him feel like he was being examined, measured somehow. It wasn't a frightening look, but it wasn't entirely comfortable either. Sam glanced past the child into the snowy darkness beyond his porch. He saw no car, no footprints leading to his door except for the small ones right in front of him. The nearest neighbor lived 12 miles away, and the main road was even farther. How had this child arrived here? "You must be freezing," Sam said, standing up and stepping back from the doorway. "Come inside where it's warm. We'll figure out where you belong." The child took a small step forward, then stopped. Those large eyes looked up at Sam with something that might have been curiosity or perhaps recognition. When the child finally moved, it was with the careful, precise movements of someone much older, not the rushed energy typical of young ones. Inside the house, the warmth immediately began melting the snow from the child's hair and clothes. Sam led the way to the living room, where the fireplace still glowed with orange light. He gestured to the chair across from his own. "Sit down and get warm," he said. "Would you like some hot chocolate? I think I can manage to make some." The child sat in the large chair, small legs dangling over the edge. In the firelight, Sam could see more details of the unusual little visitor. The red dress was old but well-made, with tiny stitches and careful patches. The child's hands were small and pale, folded neatly in their lap. "What's your name?" Sam asked, settling back into his own chair. "I'm Sam, this is my ranch." For the first time, the child's mouth moved. When the voice came, it was soft and clear, with an accent Sam couldn't quite place. "I know who you are," the child said simply. Sam felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter night outside. There was something in those words, something in the way they were spoken, that made his skin prickle with an emotion he couldn't name. "You know me?" he asked. "How is that possible? I've never seen you before." The child's head tilted again, and those dark eyes never left Sam's face. "You have been waiting for me," the child said. "Tonight, on Christmas Eve, just like she said you would be." Sam's whiskey glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the hardwood floor. The sound echoed through the silent house like a gunshot. He stared at the child, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. "What did you say?" he whispered. The child didn't flinch at the breaking glass or Sam's shocked reaction. Those dark eyes remained fixed on his face with an unnerving calmness that belonged to someone far older than 7 or 8 years. "She told me you would be here alone on Christmas Eve," the child repeated in that soft, clear voice. "She said you would be sitting by the fire thinking about all the people you've lost. She said you would need me to come." Sam's legs felt weak. He gripped the arms of his chair so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Who is she? Who told you about me?" The child slid down from the large chair and walked to the broken glass on the floor. With careful movements, the little one began picking up the larger pieces, placing them gently on the side table as if this was a normal, everyday task. "You shouldn't do that," Sam said, his voice shaking slightly. "You might cut yourself." "I won't cut myself," the child said simply, continuing to clean up the mess. "She taught me to be careful with broken things. She said broken things can still be beautiful if you know how to handle them right." A memory hit Sam like a physical blow. Used to say something similar when she would repair his mother's old china teacups. She would hold the pieces carefully, explaining how cracks could be filled with gold to make something even more beautiful than before. It was a Japanese technique she had learned about, something called. "Your grandmother had very gentle hands," had told him once, watching him try unsuccessfully to glue a handle back onto a cup. "She would have known exactly how to fix this. Broken doesn't mean worthless, Sam. Sometimes it means precious." "How do you know about?" Sam started to ask, then stopped. The child couldn't possibly know what he had been thinking. The child finished collecting the glass pieces and looked up at Sam. "She said you blamed yourself for everything that went wrong. For your mother dying when you were young, for your father drinking himself to death, for your son joining the army, for your wife getting sick." Each word hit Sam like a hammer blow to his chest. These were thoughts he had never spoken aloud to anyone, private guilts he carried deep in his heart. No one knew about the nights he lay awake wondering if he could have done things differently, if his mother might have lived if he had called the doctor sooner, if his father might have found a reason to stop drinking if Sam had been a better son. "Stop," Sam said, his voice rough. "How can you possibly know these things?" The child walked to the fireplace and held out small hands to warm them by the glowing embers. "She knows because she watched you carry all that weight for so many years. She said it was too heavy for one person to bear alone." Sam felt tears burning behind his eyes. "Who is she? Please tell me who you're talking about." The child turned away from the fire and looked directly at Sam. "The lady with the silver hair and the gentle voice. She wears a blue dress with tiny flowers on it, and she smells like lavender and fresh bread. She rocks in a chair that creaks just a little bit when she moves." The description hit Sam like a lightning bolt. His grandmother, his mother's mother, had been exactly like that. Grandmother Rose, who had raised him after his mother died, who had sung him to sleep and told him stories about angels and miracles. She had died when Sam was 15, but he could still remember every detail of her face, her voice, her kindness. "She had a chair," Sam whispered. "An old rocking chair in her bedroom. It did creak a little." The child nodded. "She still has it. She rocks in it while she watches over people she loves. She told me about all of them, about you, about your mother, about your wife and your son. She said they're all there with her now, and they're not sad anymore." Sam's throat felt tight. "That's impossible. Grandmother Rose died 47 years ago." "Time is different where she is," the child said matter-of-factly. "She said to tell you that your mother wasn't in pain at the end. Your wife wasn't either. And your son died thinking about home, about the ranch, about how proud he was to be your boy." The tears came then, hot and fast, sliding down Sam's weathered cheeks. He had carried the weight of wondering about these things for so many years. Had his mother suffered? Had been afraid when the cancer took her? Had his boy thought about home in his final moments, or had he died feeling alone and forgotten? "She also said to tell you about Christmas morning when you were 8 years old," the child continued softly. "When you woke up to find the wooden horse under the tree, the one you thought had forgotten to bring." Sam's breath caught. He remembered that Christmas morning perfectly. He had asked for a carved wooden horse for months, had drawn pictures of it, and talked about nothing else. On Christmas morning, there had been other presents under their modest tree, but no wooden horse. He had tried not to cry, tried not to show his disappointment. Then Grandmother Rose had appeared in the doorway, holding something behind her back. She had winked at him and produced the most beautiful wooden horse he had ever seen, painted brown and white with a flowing mane and kind eyes. She stayed up 3 nights in a row carving that horse, the child said. Her fingers were sore and her eyes were tired, but she wanted to make it perfect for you. She said the look on your face made every minute of work worth it. Sam covered his face with his hands. She told me he had just forgotten to put it under the tree with the other presents. She knew you needed to believe in magic a little longer, the child said. She said childhood ends too quickly for most people, and you had already seen too much sadness for someone so young. Sam wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, trying to compose himself. The child stood perfectly still by the fireplace, patient and calm, as if waiting for him to process everything that had been shared. I don't understand, Sam said finally. Why are you here? Why tonight? The child moved closer to Sam's chair, small feet making barely a sound on the wooden floor. Because tonight you made a decision. She saw it in your heart and she sent me to stop you. A cold dread settled in Sam's stomach. He had indeed made a decision earlier that evening, one he hadn't admitted even to himself until this moment. He had cleaned and loaded his father's old hunting rifle, the one that had been gathering dust in the gun cabinet for years. He had sat with it across his knees for nearly an hour before putting it away and reaching for the whiskey instead. I wasn't going to, he started, then stopped. He couldn't lie to this strange child who seemed to see straight through to his soul. She knows how tired you are, the child said gently. She knows how empty the house feels, how quiet the mornings are without anyone to cook breakfast for. She knows you wake up every day wondering what the point is of having all this land and all this money when there's no one left to share it with. Sam's hands trembled. It hurts too much, he whispered. Missing them hurts too much. The child reached out and touched Sam's weathered hand with tiny, warm fingers. She said love isn't supposed to stop hurting when someone dies. She said the hurt is proof that the love was real. But she also said the hurt isn't supposed to be the only thing left. What else is there? Sam asked, his voice breaking. Purpose, the child said simply. She sent me to remind you about purpose. The child walked to the large window that looked out over the snowy ranch land. In the distance, the lights of the bunkhouse were dark, but the outline of the barn and corrals could still be seen under the moonlight. Tell me about and his family, the child said. Sam blinked in surprise. Was his foreman, a good man with a wife and 3 young children. They lived in the small house near the east pasture and had been working the ranch for nearly 15 years. He's a good man, Sam said slowly. Hard worker, honest. His wife makes the best tamales in the county. His youngest daughter needs surgery, the child said quietly. Something wrong with her heart. Hasn't told you because he knows you're struggling and he doesn't want to burden you with his problems. Sam sat up. What kind of surgery? The expensive kind. The kind that costs more money than we'll ever see, even if he works for you for the rest of his life. He's been trying to figure out how to pay for it. He's even considered leaving the ranch to find work in the city where he might earn more money. He can't leave, Sam said immediately. This ranch is his home. His family belongs here. The child turned back to face him. She said you would say that. Sam was quiet for a long moment, thinking about and his family. Little Isabella was only 5 years old, a sweet child who always waved when she saw Sam riding past their house. She had her father's bright smile and her mother's gentle nature. What else hasn't told me? Sam asked. Mrs. In town has been trying to sell her farm for 2 years, the child said. Her husband died and she can't manage it alone. She's about to lose it to the bank. She's too proud to ask for help. Sam knew Mrs. She was a widow in her 70s who had brought him fresh apple pies every year since died. Her small farm bordered his property to the south. And there's the Johnson family, the child continued. Their boy needs a scholarship to go to college, but they don't know how to apply for one. He's smart enough, but his parents never went to school themselves. The child kept talking, and with each story, Sam felt something stirring in his chest. Not the heavy weight of grief, but something lighter, something that reminded him of who he used to be before loss had consumed him. She said you used to know every family in the county, the child said. You used to help people without being asked, without expecting anything in return. You gave jobs to men who needed work, sent money to families who were struggling, paid for doctors when children were sick. That was before, Sam said quietly, before I lost everyone. She said losing people doesn't mean you stop caring about people, the child replied. She said it means you understand better than anyone how precious life is, how important it is to help while you still can. Sam looked around his empty house with new eyes. All these rooms that felt too big and too quiet, they could be filled with purpose again. He had resources that could change lives, skills that could help people, land that could provide homes and jobs for families who needed them. She said something else, the child added softly. What? She said you've been so focused on the people you've lost that you haven't noticed all the people you still have. People who care about you, who depend on you, who think of you as family even if they're not related by blood. Sam thought about the way they always invited him for dinner on Sundays even though he usually declined. He thought about Mrs. bringing those pies, about the ranch hands who always asked how he was doing, who stayed a few extra minutes at the end of the day just to chat. She's right, Sam said, his voice stronger now. I haven't been paying attention. The child smiled for the first time since arriving, and the expression transformed that doll-like face into something radiant and warm. She said you would remember once someone reminded you. But why you? Sam asked. Who are you really? The child's smile grew wider, and those dark eyes sparkled with something that might have been mischief. She said you would figure that out when you were ready to see the truth instead of just the sadness. Sam leaned forward in his chair, studying the child's face more carefully. Now that the shock was wearing off and his mind was clearing, he began to notice details he had missed before. There was something familiar about the shape of those dark eyes, something that tugged at a memory he couldn't quite reach. You look like someone I know, he said slowly, or someone I used to know. The child walked to the mantelpiece and picked up a framed photograph that Sam hadn't looked at in months. It showed Sam, and on their wedding day, young and happy, surrounded by friends and family. The child held the photo carefully, tracing the faces with one small finger. She was beautiful, the child said softly. She had kind eyes and a gentle smile. Yes, Sam said, his voice thick with emotion. She was the most beautiful woman I ever saw. She told me about the day you met, the child continued. At the county fair. She was working at the church booth, selling pies to raise money for the new roof. You bought 6 pies even though you lived alone and couldn't possibly eat them all. Sam chuckled despite his tears. I gave 5 of them away to neighbors, but I told her I had a big appetite just so I could keep talking to her. She knew, the child said with a smile. She said you were the worst liar she'd ever met, but also the sweetest. She said she fell in love with you right there at that pie booth because you were kind to her even when you thought no one was watching. The child set the photograph back on the mantel and picked up another one. This picture was older, more faded. It showed a young Sam holding a baby, both of them grinning at the camera. And this is your son, the child said, Thomas. Tommy, Sam corrected automatically. We called him Tommy. He was proud of you, the child said. Even when he was far away, even when things got scary, he would tell the other soldiers about the ranch, about how his father built something important from nothing. He said you taught him that a man's worth isn't measured by what he owns, but by how he treats people who can't do anything for him in return. Sam had never heard this before. Tommy had been a quiet boy, not given to big speeches about feelings or values. But Sam had tried to teach him right from wrong, tried to show him how to be a good man. He wrote letters, the child continued. Letters he never got to send. She showed them to me. He wrote about wanting to come home and work the ranch with you, about maybe finding a good woman and giving you to spoil. Sam whispered. The word hit him like a physical blow. He had dreamed of little voices filling the empty rooms, of teaching young ones to ride horses and care for cattle the way his own father should have taught him. The child moved closer to Sam's chair again, and this time something about the movement struck him as deeply familiar. It was a particular way of tilting the head, a certain grace in the small steps. He had seen it before, but where? She said you wanted a daughter too, the child said quietly. Before Tommy was born, you and used to talk about having a little girl. You even picked out a name. Sam's heart stopped. They had picked out a name, though he hadn't thought about it in decades. If Tommy had been a girl, they were going to call her Hope. Hope Rose, after his middle name and Sam's grandmother. How do you know about that? Sam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Because, the child said, taking another step closer, she never stopped hoping you would have a daughter. Even after the doctors said it wasn't possible, even after Tommy was born and you were grateful for your son, part of her heart always wondered what it would have been like to have a little girl to love too. Sam felt the room spinning around him. We never told anyone about that, and we never spoke about it after Tommy was born. It felt wrong to want something more when we had been blessed with such a perfect son. The child reached out and took Sam's large, weathered hand in both of those tiny, pale ones. She said to tell you that love doesn't have limits. Loving Tommy completely didn't mean there wasn't room in your heart for more love. She said hearts expand, they don't just divide. Said that to me once, Sam whispered. When we were talking about maybe adopting, she said hearts expand. The child squeezed his hand gently. She never got sick, you know, in the place where she is now. She's young and healthy and beautiful again, and she's been waiting. Waiting for what? For you to be ready, the child said simply. Ready to love again, ready to be the father she always knew you could be. Sam looked down at their joined hands, and suddenly he saw it. The child's hands weren't just pale and small. They had a particular shape, delicate fingers with tiny nails that were perfectly clean. They were hands, miniature versions of the hands that had touched his face, cooked his meals, held his own hands during difficult times. Oh my God, he breathed. The child's grip tightened slightly. She said you would see it when your heart was ready to accept love again instead of just holding on to loss. Sam looked up into those dark eyes, but in a young face, and felt the final piece of the puzzle click into place. The familiar movements, the gentle voice, the way the child seemed to know exactly what to say to heal his wounded heart. He started, then stopped, afraid to say it out loud, afraid he might be wrong. She sent me to you, the child said softly. Not just to stop you from giving up, but to give you something to live for again. She said you were the best father Tommy could have asked for, and you deserved the chance to be a father again. Sam's eyes filled with tears as he looked at this impossible, wonderful child. This little one who had appeared on his doorstep like a Christmas miracle, who had known exactly what he needed to hear, who looked at him with eyes full of love and trust and hope. She said to tell you that this time you don't have to do it alone, the child continued. This time you'll have help. All the people you've helped over the years, all the friends you forgot you had, they'll help you learn how to be a father to a daughter. Sam fell to his knees beside the chair and gathered the child into his arms. The little one felt real and warm and solid, not like a ghost or a dream, but like a living, breathing miracle. You're the daughter we dreamed of, he whispered into that corn-silk hair. You're Hope. Hope, the name felt right in Sam's heart, like a key turning in a lock that had been closed for far too long. He held the child, his daughter, this impossible gift, and felt warmth spreading through his chest for the first time in years. Not the burning warmth of whiskey, but the gentle, healing warmth of love renewed. Hope rose, he whispered, and the child smiled up at him with eyes sparkling in the firelight. She said you would remember the full name, Hope said, her small arms wrapping around Sam's neck. She said you used to whisper it to her belly before Tommy was born, just in case. Sam laughed through his tears. He had done exactly that, placing his hand on his growing stomach and whispering both names, Thomas Samuel if it was a boy, Hope Rose if it was a girl. Had pretended to be asleep, but he had caught her smiling more than once. How is this possible? He asked, pulling back to look at Hope's face. How are you here? She said some things don't need to be understood, just accepted, Hope replied. She said you believed in magic when you were young, and believing in magic is how miracles happen. Sam thought about that Christmas morning when he was 8, about the wooden horse that had appeared when he needed to believe in wonder. His grandmother had taught him that some of the best things in life couldn't be explained, only experienced with gratitude. What happens now? He asked. Do you stay? Hope nodded solemnly. If you want me to, she said it was your choice. She said love is always a choice, and she wanted you to choose to love again, not just accept it because you had to. Of course I want you to stay, Sam said immediately. I want you to stay forever. Then I will, Hope said simply. But she said to tell you that love isn't just receiving, it's also giving. She said you have a lot of giving to catch up on. Sam understood. Tomorrow he would call and tell him not to worry about his daughter's surgery. Tomorrow he would drive to Mrs. Farm and make her an offer she couldn't refuse, not to buy her land, but to help her keep it. Tomorrow, he would start paying attention to his community again, start using his resources to help the people who had been quietly supporting him through his grief. "I'll need to learn how to be a father to a daughter," he said. "I only knew how to raise boys." "She said girls aren't that different from boys," Hope said with a grin. "They just ask more questions and need more hugs." Sam chuckled. "I think I can manage that." "And she said would help. His wife, she said, has been wanting to help you for years but didn't know how. Now she'll know how." Sam pictured's kind face, her gentle way with children. She would indeed know how to help him navigate the mysterious world of raising a daughter, and Mrs. could teach Hope to bake. The other ranch families could help too, creating a community of support that would benefit everyone. "We'll turn this house into a home again," Sam said, looking around the empty rooms with new eyes. "We'll fill it with friends and family dinners and laughter." "And Christmas celebrations," Hope added. "She said you used to love Christmas." "I did," Sam admitted. We used to decorate every room. We'd have parties that lasted all weekend. Tommy loved it when he was small." "We'll do that again," Hope said confidently. "Starting tomorrow, it's Christmas Day and we have a lot to celebrate." Sam stood up, lifting Hope easily in his arms. She was small and light, but she felt real and solid and perfectly right in his embrace. He carried her to the large window that looked out over the snowy ranch land. "See all that land out there," he said. "That's going to be yours someday, but more importantly, see all those lights in the distance. Those are families, people who depend on this ranch, people who are part of our community. Taking care of them is going to be our job." "Our job," Hope repeated, and Sam loved the sound of those words. "And that barn," Sam pointed to the large structure near the house. "We're going to need to clean it out and make room for more horses. Little girls need ponies to ride, don't they?" Hope clapped her hands together with delight. "She said you would say that. She said you've been wanting an excuse to buy more horses for years." Sam laughed, a real laugh that came from deep in his belly. When was the last time he had truly laughed? He couldn't remember, but he had a feeling he would be doing a lot more laughing in the years to come. "Tomorrow we'll start making plans," he said. "But tonight it's Christmas Eve and needs to come. Do you think if we put out some cookies and milk, he might stop by?" "She said you would want to do that too," Hope said with a giggle. "She said you never got over loving Christmas magic." "Some things are too important to outgrow," Sam said, carrying Hope toward the kitchen. "Come on, let's see what kind of cookies we can find. I think left some Christmas cookie cutters in one of these cabinets." As they walked through the house together, Sam felt the emptiness that had haunted these rooms for so long finally lifting. Tomorrow there would be practical questions to answer, legal papers to figure out, and explanations to give to neighbors and friends. But tonight, on Christmas Eve, there was only love and wonder and the promise of new beginnings. Outside, snow continued to fall on the quiet ranch land. Inside, a father and daughter began the beautiful work of building a family together, one cookie and one laugh and one gentle hug at a time. And somewhere in the space between earth and heaven, and Grandmother Rose smiled and rocked in chairs that creaked just a little, watching over the family that love had made possible against all odds. Christmas miracles, they knew, were simply love finding a way to keep giving, even when it seemed impossible. And the greatest miracle of all was that Sam, the mighty cattle baron who had nearly given up on life entirely, had chosen to open his heart one more time to receive the daughter he had always dreamed of loving. Hope Rose was finally home,